Good afternoon and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Feels odd saying that, but this is my third video and I am very happy to be back here with you. As I said before, my videos are going to be a mixture of things that I love to do, which mainly involve clothes and shopping and so forth, but also what is really important to me is creating really informative, helpful content. And if it's not just informative, positive content and tips and tricks and things that I do in my life every day that help me tenfold. And so therefore I just want to share that with as many people as possible, and if it's helpful for you then I'm doing something right. But anyways, to get back to it, today's video is all about setting your annual goals. Now this is something I genuinely love doing because a new year for me normally means a fresh new start and a chance to really kind of plan out what you want to achieve. And for me that is really exciting, being able to set out for something that you want and work towards it, and then when you finally get it, it's just so rewarding. And I don't know if that's something for me that's been installed in my life from a very early age, from being a gymnast and always working to achieve various different things, but ultimately I've carried it through into my adult life and I've become quite regimented with it, and it's something that I've shared with my partner Joe, and it's now a tradition in our household that we do it every year. So I thought, why not share it with you and see if it is helpful to anyone. Now, yes, I can hear you all thinking, she loves to set her goals, but she's doing this video in February. The new year started in January. Why is she doing it now? And ultimately, to be really truthful with you, is January was a real whirlwind. It started very quickly. I had high hopes at the start of January, and then it kind of went downhill a bit with the announcement of the UK lockdown, the unwinding, uncertain timeline as to when we would be coming out of COVID and when it would disappear for all completely. And, you know, it left me feeling really down in the dumps, to be truthful. So I didn't set my goals, and I really decided that February, when I started in February, that would be the month. And I think the key thing there is that do not let the start of the year be the only time that you can start planning towards goals or setting yourselves intentions and purpose for whether that be your week or your year. I think that mindset is quite dangerous, that whole mindset of, yeah, I'm going to start next year, or, you know, we all fall falter to it, but that, oh yeah, I'm going to start my diet on Monday. You know, like if I got £1 for every time I was going to start my diet on a Monday, I would be rich. I wouldn't need to work anymore. But anyways, getting back to it, ultimately, when I started writing my blog post, which I popped up on my website this week, about what I do to set my yearly goals, I realised that there was kind of 8 distinct stages to our methodology. And I say our because Joe and I do it together now. So what I thought I would do was talk you through the things that I do, and maybe even just do a few of my goal setting whilst I'm on camera, and see how that goes. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy it. So for the first part of setting my goals, the first thing I like to do is gather my tools. Now, I put a blog post about this, so if you've read the post already, and if you haven't, I'll put a link in the comments to the actual post itself. But if you read the post, I said stage 1 was gather your tools. Now, I know that sounds a little bit odd, but I find that this whole thing of setting up your goals is incredibly creative. Essentially, what I think about it is it's like expressing yourself, and it's like the deepest part of yourself, because when you really go far deep into your mind and think, what is it that I would love to achieve in life throughout this year? I find it is incredibly personal, it's incredibly vulnerable and intimate, but it's also very creative. So when I like to do this thing, I'm just like searching around for things on the floor, but ultimately my tools are this: one small whiteboard and a dry white pen. And then for the very end, we'll come to this, a very, very large whiteboard. I don't know why, I always used to do this on paper before, but actually having done this a few years in a row now, I just kind of like to try and make it be an exercise rather than something that's really structured and rigid. You know, the idea of putting up a lined piece of paper and a pen and just writing my goals feels too restrictive. And I think the really important thing about setting your goals is to make the entire task and exercise as least restrictive as possible, because ultimately you're trying to open yourself, open your mind, open your heart, be true to yourself and say, what is it that I really want from life and ultimately this year? So first things first, let's gather your tools. One thing I will say, I'll put a link to the boards that I use. I got them from Amazon. They're really cheap. But I do, and also got the dry white pens from Amazon. But one thing I will say is get a good pen. Now, my pens are a bit rubbish, and especially when you leave your goals on a whiteboard for a whole year, it can take a little bit of time to actually get the pen off. And I normally use tissues, and yeah, I'm not completely professional with this, but a dry white pen and a whiteboard and you are well away. Now, step 2 or stage 2 is decide on what your goal categories are. Now, that might sound like a foreign concept, but ultimately, when it was just myself, before I met my partner, my goal categories were personal, so my own personal growth, what did I want to do for me? And then my second category was career. What did I want to do for my career? Where did I want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And ultimately how I'm going to kind of carve out that career. So I'd set myself goals every single year. Now, when I met my partner, that slightly changed. I still have my personal goals and I still have my career goals, but the third category for me is like a family goal. Yes, my partner and I don't have any children or anything yet, but it feels weird to say a relationship goal because it feels like you've got to work at your relationship. But ultimately, if you're in a relationship, you know you do actually have to work at a relationship. But yeah, ultimately it was a category which we would both talk about together and decide what it is that we would like for ourselves, for our family, for that year. And that could be anything from a particular holiday that you might be working towards, moving house, creating a financial plan, maybe you're thinking about wills. You know, deep down sometimes you may be thinking, I'm hoping that he's thinking about proposing and getting married and so forth. But yeah, it's basically whatever category works for you. And for me right now, it is personal growth, career and family. And if I have children, you know, there might be another category on there. Now, step 3 is what I like to call the brainstorming part. And to be honest, this is one of my favourite part of the entire exercise. It's also one of the most vulnerable part of the entire exercise, because ultimately what you need to do is basically write down every single thing that flies through your mind, literally everything that you would like. And what I would say to this is the type of mindset or energy that you need to try and bring to the brainstorming is the same kind of energy that a child would bring if you said to a child, what would you like to be when you're younger? You know, the kids, they get so excited about, oh, I'd like to be a fireman and so forth. Ultimately, I know it's not as exciting as an adult, but really, why shouldn't it be as exciting as an adult? You know, this is your life. You get one life. You only get the chance to do it once. So why not strive to do absolutely everything that you've ever wanted to? And you know, why not challenge yourself? You know, there's things that sit right in the back of your head that you've always wanted to do, you might want to achieve. This is the time when they need to come to the forefront of your mind and be written down. So for the brainstorming, I use my smaller whiteboard. And normally I would sit and do this with my partner, and basically we'd sit across from each other and I would say to him, okay, in the next 3 to 5 minutes, and yes, I would time it, you need to write down every single thing that flies in your mind as to what you might want to achieve this year for yourself. And I would do it by category. So for example, I'd say first category, first whiteboard, I'd say write down every single thing that you want to do personally for you. And then for the next category, I'd say, write every single thing that you would like to do or achieve in your career, as an example of that. And another thing I would suggest that when you do this, you literally write every single thing that flies through your mind and try not to be too detailed about it. There's going to be plenty of time to analyse it down the way, but literally just write everything. Don't think of a thought and then go, oh no, could I do that? Do I want that? Literally, it doesn't matter if you write something on the board that you later on decide, no, actually, I don't really want to achieve that at all. It's all about just trying to get everything that flies through your mind onto this whiteboard. So yeah, what I'll do, normally I would do all of these with my partner, but I'm going to share this with you guys. I'm going to do one of mine. What am I going to do today? I'm going to work on what do I want personally for me? But yeah, and I'll, pop the video on whilst I'm doing this. Okay, so stage 4. So now that you have finished writing down or brainstorming every single thing that comes to your mind when it comes to your particular category, this is now the stage where you analyse your brainstorm. And ultimately, this is a time when you just really look back at everything you've written. Now, I don't know about you, I'm just looking at my board now, but when I first started writing or brainstorming, and I think it really it's really like a true reflection of how your brain works when you first start doing it, because I don't know about you, but I don't brainstorm on a daily basis, so it's not something that comes naturally to me. And when I first started writing down the things that I would like personally for myself, what I found myself doing was like, oh, COVID vaccine. Yes, I did put controversial, no, I put the COVID vaccine on there, but things like, oh, I want to go and see this person, or I want to do this thing. And it started out to kind of like a bit like a to-do list. And that's okay if it's a bit of like a to-do list, but it's also good that in your mindset, you make sure that you go in, actually, it's not just a to-do list, it's like, what do you want to achieve by the end of the year? But once I got into the flow of it, I actually started to really enjoy it, because I think there's an element of just freeness about the activity of, you know, brainstorming anything that you want, and it's a real vulnerability, and it's a time to really be truthful with yourself. But yeah, once you've written all your things, the next thing is to look back through them all, and I'm just looking back through them all now, and to really analyse them and think about them. You know, think about it. Is that actually something I really want? Is that something that I really want and I really want to do this year? Is that more of a to-do list thing rather than an achievement thing? And just really think about it. And when I normally do this with my partner, and you don't obviously have to do this with your partner, because it's something that I did by myself for a very long time, for many years before I met my partner. But you could do this with a close family relative or a friend, especially a friend who's on a similar mindset as you, because I think sometimes when you do it with another person, you end up having that kind of shared accountability. I think that they can ask you, you know, at least not necessarily every single month, but throughout the year, how you're getting on with achieving your goals. And it's somebody else to kind of brainstorm and throw ideas about with. And I think that's what I quite like about it. It's quite collaborative. And then you kind of strive together. It's something that you're bonding to do together. But yeah, so what Joe and I do is once we've filled out our boards with what we've analysed, and once we've had the chance to look through and read through them, we then exchange the board with one another. Yes, it can be a bit daunting, and then he will read through everything that I've written, and I will read through everything that he's written, and then we have a conversation about it. We talk about it, and he may say, oh, you know, you've put this here, is that something what you would like to do? And the whole key part of this stage is that once you analyse it, you'll naturally get a feel for the things that actually you want to achieve for this year, which will allow you to then identify exactly what your goals are going to be for that year. Now, stage 5 is identify your goals. So now you've had the chance to really analyse and look back through all of the things that you've written on your whiteboard, or even discuss it with your partner and your friend. That now is the stage is to really identify what actually is going to be your goals for that year. So what I choose to do is then draw rings round any of the things which are going to be my goal for the year. And ultimately, how I choose my goals is I get my pen and just go back through them and just hover around each idea. And then I just ring a circle around anything that just generally speaks to me. The key thing is that the goal that you choose, or the goals that you choose, has to really speak to you. You have to really feel passionate about doing it, feel passionate to want to do it, or in your mind think, I need to do this. As ultimately, sometimes I think achieving goals can be quite easy. They may be hard work, but they can be quite easy purely because you really want to do them. And I think that's the key thing is if there is something that you really want to achieve, and you have that hard work and ethic, then you will push yourself to try and achieve it. And ultimately, there's no point choosing something that you're not really that fussed about, because by kind of month 11, it's unlikely that you're going to have done the hard work required to achieve it. Another thing I would say is that when you're choosing these goals, to look at the goal and think to yourself, is this an adequate goal? Is this goal realistic? And is it a goal that can be achieved in 1 year? Now, sometimes there are goals which are just huge. It doesn't make them any less of a goal, but it just means that they're a goal that potentially may not be able to be achieved in 1 year, and it may take 2 or 3 years. And a prime example of this is whether that is saving for a house or buying a house. One of the things that Joe and I have had as a personal goal for ourselves for the past 2 years now, and it's probably going to take us about 3.5 years to 4 years to achieve, is to build our own home. And that's taken us a long time because there is a whole planning stage and making your drawing first, and then putting the application in, and then the application may get denied, refused, and going back to the drawing board and so forth. And that's before you even actually built the house. So yeah, really think about whether that goal can be achieved. And if a goal can't be achieved in 1 year, that's perfectly fine. But the key thing is to then say, okay, that's the goal. It's going to take me, for example, 2 years to achieve. So what is the goal for year 1 in order to put myself into a position where I could achieve it in year 2? And another tip I have is don't choose too many goals. Now, especially when you're in the throng of January or the throng of February, when you've got lots of enthusiasm, the likelihood is that you're going to want to choose like lots of goals, but you can't spread yourself too thin, and that is a key thing to do. And so therefore make sure you only choose a few to make sure that you're able to achieve them, and therefore not going to choose loads and then actually not have the time to do any of them. And lastly, yes, you will only be able to choose a few goals for year 1, but that doesn't mean that the rest of your goals on your board that you don't choose for this year are completely inadequate, are things that you don't want to achieve. It just means that for this year only, those goals don't speak to you, or those aren't the goals that you want to achieve this year. And it can mean that those goals will reappear if you do this exercise again next year. So now that you've identified your goals, your next step is to create what I like to call a focus board. And this is where your large whiteboard comes into play. So I'll just grab mine. I've only loosely filled it in because I haven't done all my categories. But as you can see, it's rather large, so I don't know if it's going to be in shot. But I will pop a link to this board in the comments because I think it was literally like £15, so really, really cheap, and really light as well, which makes it easy. But ultimately, what you're going to do is segregate your board into 2 halves. And the bottom half is basically where you're going to put your entire annual goals. Now, if you have 2 categories, for example, personal growth and career, you probably segregate your bottom half of the board again. So you can have a section for career and you can have a section for personal. But ultimately, you just write down all of the goals that you wish to achieve for the year. And then the top half of your board will be where you put your monthly goals. And we'll talk about that a little bit further later on. But ultimately, whatever you decide to do for that month will always be geared towards getting you to your end goal, which is your annual goals. So now that you've identified your goals and you've created your focus board, the next step, which is often the most trickiest part, I would say, is creating what I would like to call a roadmap to your end goal. Now, I think sometimes when you've set your goals, it's amazing to kind of set them. And then once you've set them, you're like, oh God, I've set them now and I now need to achieve them. How do I do that? And I think that is one of the most daunting parts. But how I like to look at my goals is that, say, for example, you've started in January and by December you should have achieved your goals, or very much be very close to achieving your goals. So how I like to look at it is that every single month is a step up the staircase to your goal. So if you look at it like a staircase, goes upwards, here's your end goal. January, you're here, and every single step is like a month onwards. And the key thing about that is that every step, like a staircase, is exactly the same size, and it's step by step. You walk your way up and you get to the goal. Now, if you were asked somebody to jump from the bottom step to the top step, then first of all, it would be daunting. And to be quite frank, I don't think anyone could do it. I know I couldn't. Whereas if you say to someone, okay, by, month 12, I need you to have walk every single step up those stairs to get to your end goal, it makes it seem a lot more manageable and a lot easier. And I think the trickiest part of creating your roadmap is just really working out, how do I get to that end goal? And I think you'll have a rough idea of how to get there. You'll normally be like, oh, well, halfway through, this is how I get to halfway through to the goal. And then if that is your first reference, then you know, you could start June, I need to get to this part, and then you can think back, okay, well, how do I get to June? What do I need to do step by step to get to that point at June? And ultimately I start write on a piece of whiteboard or a piece of paper loosely the things that I think, or the tasks that I think I would need to do in order to get to that stage. And then yeah, you should have a rough idea of how to get to your goal. The one thing I will say is it is a loose roadmap. And what I mean by loose is that as you kind of, often when you try and you move towards achieving a goal, you'll find things that you thought you had to do that you don't have to do, or you might find along the way that there are other tasks or other things that you have to do in order to achieve the goal. So just be really flexible with your roadmap. And in addition, one of the most important things to think about is the fact that we are all human and life does just happen. There are things that you will not be able to see right now that will happen throughout the course of the year, which will determine or change potentially your roadmap. For example, you might become really busy at work, or you know, God forbid, you've got someone who falls ill and you have to do, you know, give more time towards a certain something in your life than your actual goals. And that's okay. So I think the key thing is in your roadmap, make sure that there is room for maneuverability, and make sure there is room for downtime, because there's no point having a goal which requires you to basically do non-stop work for the majority of your week for the rest of the year, because that's just not going to be achievable, nor will it be fun. So if you have got a goal that will feel like that, that is often a sign to say the goal you've chosen is too large to achieve in one year, and therefore to achieve it, it might be best to split it over to 2 years. So I think that doing this exercise, creating a loose roadmap, is quite important, because it allows you just to really test your goals to see if it's something that's achievable. But what I would say is, even though it is a roadmap you're starting, you're creating, you know, in the very first month, it's okay if you get to month 2 or month 3 and think, actually, what I thought I needed to do to achieve that is absolutely rubbish, and I need to rework this. And I suppose my last kind of point on this is that ultimately, and it kind of flows on to the next stage, which is stage 8, which is about remaining focused, is that every month you should sit down. So what I like to do is at the start of every month, the very first weekend, not the first day at work, the very first weekend on a Saturday afternoon or morning. Some of you are going to say I'm crazy to be doing this kind of stuff on a Saturday morning, but yeah, that's my personality. But yeah, no, one of the things that I like to do is sit down for the month and look back on what I said I was going to do the previous month for those goals. Did I do them? Tick them off the list. Did I not do them? Think about, okay, why didn't I do them? Put them onto the list for this month, and then think alongside those goals, is there anything else that I could do to get me further towards my goal? Or what I have transferred from last month to this month may just be enough in itself. But to think about the things that you need to do, and by revisiting it at least once a month, it means that you remain focused. You don't want to do that thing, and I've done it, where you say, oh, this year I'm going to set out all my New Year's resolutions. I don't do New Year's resolutions, actually, purely because I always fail them. But if I say something, oh, I'd like to achieve this goal, but then I don't think about it again to kind of November, the likelihood of me achieving that goal is pretty slim. So it's all about kind of doing that constant kind of check-in. And I think to check in once a month on your goals is not too laborious. Although it would be sensible to kind of look back at your to-do list for that month regularly every week. But setting your goals for the month should be done at least once a month. But in terms of setting your monthly goals and how to achieve those monthly goals, I did actually write a blog post on this last year. So I'll pop the link to the monthly how to achieve your monthly goals post in the comments as well. I haven't done a video. I might do one, who knows? We'll see how successful this video is. But yeah, if you go onto that post and have a little read, as there are some tips and tricks on to how to achieve your monthly goals as well, if you fancy a read. But just on the last point on stage 8 and how to remain focused, as well as doing the monthly check-in, the one thing I would say is this sexy little board it's all about its positioning. There's no point spending time. Oh God, I'm gonna have to get off my knees. I'm getting old. My knees are killing. I've been on my knees the entire video. But yeah, so there's no point creating this amazing board and spending all the time on it if you're just going to literally tuck it behind a cupboard, because let's face it, it's not the most attractive board. It will knock out the feng shui, and as you can see, it doesn't really go with this room. But what I like to do is I put this board on the landing in my hallway. So what it means is when I wake up in the morning, I walk past this board. It also means when I go to bed, I also walk past this board. And what that does is it brings it back into your mind as to what you're trying to achieve. The other thing I would say, because I've done this, is if you do decide to put it in a landing in the hallway, it might be worth every so often changing its positioning, because the way your brain works is so clever. It just gets used to it being there, and you actually, even though you look at it, you don't actually look at it. So it's sometimes really good to move it around. But yeah, see how you go. It is hard to remain focused, but if it's a goal that you're really passionate about and you really want, I always think it's a lot easier. But anyways, that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching this video. And if you've made it this far, I thought I'd leave you with some tidbits. But I read a Harvard business study, which said that people that actually choose and set their goals are 10 times more likely to be successful. And also those people that actually physically write down their goals and not just have their goals mentally, those people that write down their goals are up to about 2 times more likely to achieve them. So I hope by watching this video, it's kind of giving you the inspiration to go ahead and do these stages as I said, or loosely do those stages. But the main thing is just to decide what your goals are and get them down, write them down, and to constantly look back at them month on month to help you remain focused and along on your way. But yeah, thanks very much for watching this video. If you have any top tips and tricks that you do for yourself to set your own goals and things that help you to achieve your goals, please, please, please share them in the comments, because truthfully, I want to learn from everyone, and I would love to create a community on here where we're all helping each other. We're all sharing what we're doing in the comments. You know, if we found a cute jumper, we're putting it in the comments or on the blog post or on my Instagram page. I just want to create a really collaborative, positive community of women and men. Yeah, that's my goal. But if you have liked this video and would like to see content like this in the future, please hit like and subscribe, because it really does help with my engagement, and also to understand what videos you do like, what other videos you're liking more, and to create more content like that. But anyways, for the time being, I wish you a very successful 2021 and a lovely week. Bye guys.